If you're a parent caught in the chaos of youth sports, the pressure, the politics, the excitement, you're not alone. This is Be Valiant.
Welcome to another episode of Be Valiant. I'm your host, Todd Merkow, and I'm so glad that you've tuned in. Hopefully you're listening or watching on YouTube, which is fantastic. I got another great guest today. I know I say this every time I start the show. I got another great guest, but I really do. I got another great guest. And I got to tell you, when I launched Valiant Sports Society, my nonprofit, a year ago, this was one of the first people in the space that I connected with, and it was such a great connection, I have to say. We'll roll into that a little bit more. There's a lot of parallels that we'll talk about in how she got to where she is. She's further ahead of me in advocating and doing a fantastic job. But as far as being an athlete, sports parent, a lot of similarities between the two of us. My guest today is Kirsten Jones. Kirsten Jones is a Hall of Fame former D1 collegiate athlete. She played volleyball at College of William and Mary. So a lot of sports in her background. This is one thing that I love. She's a 15-year Nike executive holding leadership roles in brand management, retail, and global marketing, working directly with elite athletes and teams around the world. So she's had direct connections with all levels of athletes. More importantly, for the parents that are listening, when we're always trying to find you great information, books to put on the bookcase or in your digital apps to carry with you while you're on the sidelines, or hopefully you're not sitting at practice, but if you are, to give you something to read. She's an author of Raising Empowered Athletes, a youth sports parenting guide for raising happy, brave, and resilient kids, which I wish I had this book when I had my kids going through, as you guys have heard, going through soccer and volleyball. She's the host of her own podcast called Raising Athletes with Kirsten Jones. She's a national speaker, a workshop leader. I mean, you want to talk about somebody who does it all. This is that person. She's a certified peak performance and leadership coach, specializing in helping parents, young athletes unlock confidence, resilience, joy in sports and life. And most important to all of this is she's a parent of three. Her and her husband, Evan, have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. We'll talk about them. They all 3 were athletes in the youth sports system. 2 of them went on to play collegiately. Kirsten, that couldn't have been the longest intro you've probably ever had on a podcast, but welcome.
Thank you, Todd. It's so good to be here. Yeah, thanks for the great intro. I hope I live up to it.
Well, now that we've got about 5 minutes left, so
yeah.
Anyway, well, let's jump into the one place I really like to set the table, and I kind of said this in your intro, is we parallel very similar in that we're both collegiate athletes. We've done the whole sport thing directly, but we're both sports parents, and you have essentially what I like to call complete the sports parent journey. I don't really count college. I mean, college is in that mix, but as far as having to navigate as a parent, help your kids, support your kids, so on and so forth, you've been through the journey all the way to the end as you get through high school. So talk about, CJ and Parker and Kylie and that whole ecosystem that's going on with your sports journey with them, with you and Evan and all the kids.
Yeah, my youngest is now a sophomore in college. So as you said, I have 25, 22, and 19. And, actually I woke up this past weekend and you still have those panic moments where you're like, where am I supposed to be? Because you're just so used to every weekend being filled, not to mention weekdays. But yeah, we went through, boys played basketball. One of them played soccer and basketball. My daughter played all the things. She actually didn't start playing volleyball until 13, which now at this day and age in sports is like ancient, which may have been the undoing of her not being able to play at the next level. But I believe we write the book we want to read. And I, like you, was looking around for this book. And when I started, as a parent, started on the sidelines at 5 in the pouring rain in Portland, Oregon, standing next to some parent who was, why are we playing rec, T-ball? We should be in the club system. And I thought, this is wrong. And this isn't how we grew up. This isn't what it should be. And it should all be about fun and focus on fundamentals and focused on friends. And so that's kind of the approach that my husband and I took. My husband played D3 basketball at Johns Hopkins and then D2 at Davis. And then we met over in Europe while he was playing pro. So we both had similar college experiences, getting to play at the highest level, and then, getting to the parenting space, and particularly while we were both working at Nike, while we were working with pro athletes. He was on the basketball side, working with LeBron and Kobe and those guys, and seeing, those who are making it and what they're able to do. And then being on the opposite side as a young parent and seeing the kind of the disconnection that our kids are getting from what is supposed to be fun.
Yeah, when you guys, entered into the youth sports ecosystem, rec, I'm assuming, as you progressed through it, did you and Evan, what were your values that you were basically, as two former athletes and being around a culture like Nike, what were your values that you were you purposely even at that point? Did you just have an idea that it was kind of like, well, this is our household, this is what we do, right? That's how I was, by the way. How were your values in what you were trying to do with the kids playing sports?
Yeah, we were both raised by non-athletes. So our dads were ironically both doctors who valued movement, and we skied and played tennis and did all of the things, but neither of our sets of parents said it was the end all be all to play sports. And so we took that same approach where we want our kids to be active. And I definitely wanted to have them involved in sports, but we made a concerted effort. I remember us both saying, we will not do the club thing. At the time when the kids reached the age of 13, our oldest was 13, we were living in Buffalo, New York. He was working for New Era. So we weren't in LA. We weren't in a big market. I don't know, maybe we would have made a different choice, but there we very much made a cognizant choice of saying, we're going to focus on rec. We're both going to coach. So we're going to be involved. And, women out there listening, we need more female coaches. And I don't care.
Amen.
Right. At the high school level, the number of women that say, I had a woman who played D1 soccer, and she's like, well, I don't know if I'm qualified. Like, what are you talking about? Right. Like, to coach, U9, U8, U7. Right. So we need more people who have played, who understand the sports, to be role models for these young kids. So yeah, we made a very conscious effort and choice around when we were going to pivot. And as I mentioned, it may have gone on to bite my daughter, that she wasn't, I didn't start playing volleyball till high school. But I was a good athlete. I skied and played basketball and rode horses and did all the things you could do in the Montana wilderness. And so when I got to volleyball, in fact, when I got to college, originally I went to San Diego State. I walked on at State after trying out for the junior national team. And the assistant coach said, you're a really good athlete. You're not a very good volleyball player, but that's okay. We can train you how to play volleyball.
Yeah.
And that's what I hear all the top coaches say. So parents, if you're worried about specializing at 5, at 8, at 10, at 12, don't specialize. Have them be better all around athletes. And that's what's going to lead to less burnout, less overwhelm. Their bodies are going to hold out. And by the way, they may still enjoy the sport. What I see now more and more are 15, 16, 17-year-olds who are really good at whatever sport it is, but they've already had a pro career. They've already been playing since they were 3, 4, or 5, and they're 18 and they're tired.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up. I haven't said this on this podcast, but what makes me laugh about specialization today, I'm an old guy, and as I teach at Arizona State, I always think, all these kids that are in here that talk all this garbage about playing sports, and I'm like, I could take every single one of them, even at this age, because I was a multi-sport athlete, and I acquired all those tools. I'm like, I'll take you on in anything. And that's what these kids, I think, for the most part, that specialize are completely missing. And it's unfortunate because there's so much value that translates into other areas. You said something, and I want to touch on this. So you and Evan, you basically were thinking not to go the club route. Is that because you had a sense of it, a taste of it through Nike and that world? Because I had no clue, by the way, of what club meant today when I went through it. And I think our kids were probably going through mine were volleyball and soccer. We're probably going through these experiences around the same time of what the youth sports ecosystem looked like.
Yeah, I think honestly, it's dramatically changed in the last even 10 years. So when you and I both started with their kids being in kick and chase or whatever at 5, 6, 7, I started writing my book in 2017, 2018, and in the book, I say it's a $20 billion business, youth sports. Well, fast forward 5 years, it's a
Yeah.
$43 billion
Yeah.
business. So that we keep moving the chains and we keep moving this. So I don't know that it's even fair to say how we made choices. I now have, and I think I've told you this, I've had a half a dozen pro and D1, mostly dads, reach out to me and say, I played at the highest level. And the FOMO isn't the right word, but the fear of I'm behind that they feel that we didn't feel like I think it's still really shifted. And that's speaking to what's going on in the culture,
Yeah.
which is all of this messaging that's telling you you don't want to be behind. You don't want you got to get you got to get on the train right now. If the train's leaving the station, you can
Yeah.
never catch up. And that's really bad marketing. And so for parents who, when I talk to ones who, you have a child under the age of 13, the 3 F's: friends, fun, and fundamentals. Find a club, find a program, find a coach that values those things. Forget about the trophy, forget about the U9 national champions. Like if I had $1 for every time I hear that, and I just want to, it is not a thing. Like there's no such thing as a U9 national champion.
Yeah.
And we don't need that. What you need is at the end of every season, when you ask your son or daughter, did you have fun? Did you learn something? Did you make some good friends? What do you think about that season? And they say, yeah, that was awesome. I want to do it again.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, not to cut you off, you bring up fear. I got to tell you, even though it has changed and it continues to change, that was number one, my emotion as a sports parent. I don't know how it came that way. I mean, I have an idea now, but at the time I had no idea. I couldn't believe it was fear as my number one emotion. It handcuffed me. It literally handcuffed me, being afraid of being behind, being afraid of making the wrong decision for your kid, pulling them from a team in your gut they should not be on. They need to be playing somewhere else, but they're going to leave their friends and they freak out and so on and so forth. Fear was number one, which is why, it's be valiant, play fearless. So point well taken. And I believe, there's plenty of those that have been there over the years. So let's talk about sticking at the home for a minute before we shift gears. I like to talk about sports culture and culture at home. One thing that I don't think that I purposely did was to figure out what is the culture at home? What is the objective here? I mean, by the way, your 3 F's are probably a perfect foundation for what sports culture should be at home. Friends, fun, and fundamentals. I wish I had that pinned on probably every room in my house at the time my kids were playing. But I think parents need to be really purposeful when they get into this environment to understand what is the culture, and then subsequently talk about that culture with your kids as they become aware enough to understand what it is and in tune with it, and then find your connections with coaches, with organizations, so on and so forth. So a long lead in, but what did you purposely set up your culture in your house to dictate how things were going to connect?
No, and that's why I wrote the book, because I made all of the mistakes, right? Like, and that's the hope, is that, maybe you can learn from some of the things that I fell flat on my face. But I mean, yes, we did some of them, but some of them we were all in once they were all in. And so we were those parents that were dividing and conquering every single weekend, and, not spending time together, and not going to grandma's 80th, and not doing the family vacation. I mean, I've got stories of dragging the kids away from Vegas, and that's all they wanted to do was go to the basketball tournament in the 120-degree heat in July to go whitewater rafting. And my oldest one sat in the back of the raft like, this sucks. This is the worst vacation ever. And, yet when I ask him about that vacation, he's like, oh, that was great. And I'm like, what do you mean that was great? He's like, yeah. No, it was so fun. We went whitewater rafting. I said, you went kicking and screaming from Vegas because at 5'9", 125 pounds as a 14-year-old, you were pretty sure you were getting missed out on recruiting. And I was like, yeah, there's nobody recruiting you there you're not, LeBron's son or Kobe's son. This is not happening. Right. So I've made all the mistakes, but all of that to say, and it's an easy word to throw out, but the FOMO, I don't mean like you're jealous of what other people are doing, but FOMO from a standpoint of what are your values as a family?
Yeah.
And I think we can start talking about our family values when they're really young. And some of the women, particularly that I've followed, that have gone before me and written amazing parenting books, like Jessica Leahy, who wrote The Gift of Failure, and Julie Lefcourt-Hames, who wrote How to Raise an Adult. And there's a plenty of women in these spaces, and men, but the ones that come to mind right now that I was looking at when I was writing my book were really about values and understanding. And if you don't know what they are, then that's a great conversation starter. Like, is it important that we get to do Sunday dinners? Is it important that, one day a week, we don't care what else is going on, we're all going to watch a movie together, that we're going to go on a vacation, that we're going to sleep in the backyard, whatever, like whatever your values are, because that will then be the North Star for making these other decisions. And what you were talking about, Todd, which I totally agree, which is the fear that sets in, that when my son was a freshman playing on the freshman basketball team, and he dared to miss one practice over Thanksgiving weekend, and the coach just iced him for 2 weeks. He was the starter, and he went from not only not starting but not playing, and the coach wouldn't talk to him for 2 weeks because he dared to miss one practice over Thanksgiving. Of course we felt horrible. We're like, are we bad parents because we
Yeah.
missed a practice? And then I have to come back to, no, my values are, that's family time. And if, coach, could you explain to us up front that this is what's going to happen? And if they can do that, then fine. Son, we're going to live with these consequences. You may not play. Do I think the punishment fits the reward, the transgression? No, but we don't get to choose necessarily what the coaches are how they're gonna treat us, but we do get to choose what are our values, and then we can act accordingly, and we can hopefully proactively communicate with the coaching staff over what, hey, yes, don't miss the playoffs, don't miss the most important game of the season or tournament of the season, but hey, if a certain family member's getting married and this is that one weekend and we want all of our family there, they're 12. It's probably going to be okay that they miss, right?
Oh gosh, now you're bringing back PTSD for me. We didn't go to. I don't think a wedding came in the mix, but I've seen that. I don't know how many times that a coach got mad because some kid was going to leave the team to go to a family affair, and the repercussions that came back on it, and you just shake your head and think, okay, we're in the wrong place, but you're not doing anything about it. You're not leaving because your turn's coming. It's like, oh yeah, you just brought up a whole new memory. Thanks very much. Talking about all that stuff, I want to throw an idea at you. Did you and Evan find yourself, what was possibly, I had many of these, by the way, what was probably one of the more stressful moments between any of the three kids where there was, maybe different opinions? It got a little, I don't know if heated's the right word, just, the exchange between you and Evan and how you do the right thing, and the, compound that with the pressure of the whole situation of, what's going on with the team or the coach or, those outside sources. Did you feel any of that? Did any of that come into play in your house?
They say the most important decision you make is who you'll marry. And I chose a guy who understands just in his bones about the value of youth sports and what he got from it. And he never over revved on it. And he was always the one that would get hot under the collar, and he'd be like, it's okay, it'll work itself out. That's fine that he got cut from this team. He'll make the next team. So he's been a really great, and I don't know that I was necessarily unhinged about anything, but how I feel inside, having been an athlete all my life, like I guess the hardest one for me personally was my daughter. Like, I was great. Grew up in Montana. I was tall, so I was probably given more opportunities than I deserved because of my height, and maybe I had a little bit of athleticism. So I probably got better because of the reps that I got. Whereas my daughter was only 5'10". She's very average in today's athlete, world. And she came late to a sport. So she didn't get all of the reps. In fact, by the time she was playing in high school, she was literally only shagging balls at 5:30 in the morning, 6 days a week. That's the role that the coach gave her. And that would I would need to go take laps around the gym when we go to the games, and she was the only girl to not get on the floor. That happened in the club season too, where you're like, you travel way across the states to sit in, Kansas City for 5 days to never see your kid even get in for even one serve.
Yeah.
It's painful.
Yeah.
And again, I had written a book about it. So I was like, okay, I need to follow my own advice, but it doesn't make it easy. And
Oh,
it
yeah.
doesn't mean that it's fun to go through. And she's crying and I'm crying. And the only thing I can say is, what do you want to do about this, Kylie? And she says, I want to understand why I didn't play. And I said, I think that's totally fair. So not today, not tomorrow, but Monday when you get back to practice, I would go up to the coach and ask, what can I, not about playing time, but what can I do to get better so that I can be considered for playing time?
Yeah.
And that's the coaching that I give to parents. It's much easier said than done. And I've been through it, more times than I care to admit, because it's hard. It's so hard.
Oh,
right?
it's so hard. Yeah, I'm laughing because it's like, thank God I'm not making those decisions anymore. I'm trying to help others not get in that position. It is really, really hard. And you talk about, you tug on my heartstrings. I've shed some tears with my daughters. I mean, and as a former athlete, you're trying to make sense of it, and what's right. You know what's right and what's wrong. And it's like, okay, what do you say? What do you do? Like, let me ask you a question. Kylie, in this scenario, is how old?
She was 14.
So is there, with everything that you do with youth athletes and parents for that matter, is there an age that you recommend? I interviewed Sydney, my soccer player. I probably said the same thing to Madison, my volleyball player, in the earlier podcast. If there was one mistake that I felt like probably stood out more than others, was my wife and I were always like, no, you're going to have to go talk to the coach. Like, I'm not talking to the coach for you. That's your thing. I had my history when I was a kid. I know what benefits I got from it. I know when sometimes it didn't work, but I knew that in the end of the day, the best thing for her was to go. But there were a lot of times that I felt, is she too young right now that I'm making her go do this? Is this situation too big for her to go do this? First of all, what age do you say it's okay to go deal with this?
I think it depends on the child. So, some kids, they have no problem standing up for themselves. But I would argue if your kid is more introverted, if they are quieter, then this is the time to start building the muscle. And we can start building it very, very young, much younger than we think. I mean, 7 or 8, they can go up to their first or second grade teacher. Sorry, teacher, I didn't understand the assignment. What can I do now? That's the same skills that we want them learning in their sport, right? To learn how to advocate for themselves. I mean, that's why I think the most important word in my book is called empowered, raising empowered athletes. Because what I wanted them to know was, no matter when the ball stopped bouncing for them, whether it was in middle school, high school, college, or beyond, at some point we all have to pivot. But what I want them to know is, when my son gets a concussion and he's at Boston University halfway across the country during COVID, he goes and advocates for himself, right? That didn't start by waiting until he was 19 years old.
Yeah.
That starts when they're 8, when they're 7, when they're really, really little. And if you have a really shy child, then what I like to say is, start with role play at home. Okay, I'm the coach. You're you're you. Okay, what would you want to say to the coach? And help them wordsmith it together. And then we can write it down. And then if they're still too shy, then I would say, reach out to the coach for really, really little, 8 to 9 to 10. And I coached U9. And again, I would work with them on, you can tell me what you think, right? They're like, absolutely, right? If you give them the platform, and again, goes back to choosing the right coach, then they should be open to hearing, not during the tournament, not right after the game. You have to pick your time, but right before, hey, coach, can I meet with you before practice? And maybe they do their little, 8-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old version of it, but that's okay. I was just coaching my 22-year-old last week who's playing D1 at Colgate, who's injured right now. Their season's about ready to start. They're going to open with the number 10 team in the country, and he's not able to practice right now. And so he's feeling down in the dumps. And I said, Parker, you need to have a talk with the coach. Yeah, well, I'm going to wait till I'm feeling better. No, Go advocate for yourself. Go get his feedback. Allow him to give you some love.
Yeah.
And he goes, what do you think he's going to say? I'm like, what do you think he's going to say? And we role played it. The next day I get a text. He's like, oh, that was awesome. We build things up in our head. Oh, this is so, intimidating. I can't. And he comes out of there feeling like he's really got my back. Like he really wants me to play. And
Yeah.
he's seeing how hard I'm working, even though I'm not in the drills. We all need that, like, pump up, like, I'm enough. I'm okay just as I am. And it starts, the best gift that I think one of the best gifts we're giving them by playing the sport isn't about the trophy or the podium or maybe the scholarship less than 5% will get. It's about these skills.
Yeah. 100% agree. It is, yeah. I come back to Sydney and, that whole thing and when she went, I mean, listen, there's no doubt she's better off for it today. Same thing with Madison, my oldest, the volleyball player. But again, I just think, it's painful. And I will say this, there were moments when she was a young adult, a high school athlete. She went and talked to the coaches over some stuff that was pretty high on the pecking order as far as importance. And, I sat there proud because there were other kids that had their parents behind them, kind of putting their hand in the puppet, if you will. And I just sit there and watch Sydney, have to deal with it herself. And she dealt with it. And I think parents that are listening, you got to get the we out of the equation. You are not on the court. You are not on the field. You are not on the ice. Whatever the playing surface is, it is about your kid and letting them be freer to work themselves through these situations. So,
yeah, I mean, I would say number one, if there's anything to do with safety, then you're involved.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's a non-starter. We don't negotiate over safety. Then yes, as a parent, you absolutely have the right to be involved. So if that's the issue, then that's totally separate. So we put that aside. If this is only about understanding their role, how they can be more, that more collaborative, how they can be a better teammate, what they can do to earn playing time, that should be on them. If they go and they don't get what they want, then yes, then you can escalate it to how can I help, depending on the age. But by the time they're in middle school and high school, you sit on your hands and you should really be allowing them to. I like to look at it. I originally did the podcast with Susie Walton, who I adore, and she always talked about having dark nights of the soul. We want them to have dark nights of the soul while they're at home. If we take away all of any roadblock, any fence, any barrier, they don't get a practice. They don't get the chance to realize, and that's, I think, a lot of what this generation, I mean, my parents stood at the airport in Missoula, Montana and waved goodbye and we'll see you at Christmas, right? Like
yeah.
Now we send them off to college and we take them there and then we'll be back in 3 days because we're coming for parents weekend. We'll be back for homecoming. We're never away from them. We're on the phone with them constantly, right?
Yeah.
We're so tethered to them that all of their agency comes through our validation.
Yeah.
And I'm as guilty as everybody else. I'm not judging at all. It's how we are raising them now. So the challenge is, how can I separate myself from my child while they're still at home? You still get opportunities over the dinner table and on the weekend to ask for them. But some of the best moments, I mean, I live in Los Angeles. We live in our cars, but you're not looking at each other. You're just in the car, they're in the car ride home. Like, how'd it go?
Yeah.
And let them share what they want to share. And, I love hiking too. That's another time that I have a captive audience, allowing them to, it's usually when you're not pressuring them and you're not like, what do you think? And why did the coach play that person? And, the number of parents that sit through every single practice and every single game, get a hobby, go work out, go do something else, because what are you modeling to them? That my whole life revolves around you.
Yeah, and
they don't need that pressure.
Yeah, and by the way, that's a trap. Like parents that are listening, you need to learn this. This is a trap, and it is not. I'm not saying it's a trap led by. It is a thing that you fall into, and you don't realize you're doing it. It may have started because there are parents that are those parents that are on top of their kids, and they start congregating on the sidelines at practices or wherever that case may be, and you will find yourself, this was me. I found myself there, and then I realized, okay, wait a minute, this is not, like, I got to figure something out. Like, if I'm driving to practice, I got to go for a run around the field. Like, I got to disconnect. And talking to Sydney on our podcast, Sydney said something to me that I never thought of. And I was discussing this with Linda Flanagan when she was on. We were talking about this whole concept. And I said, I never was the parent that was like on top and like, you got to do this, blah, 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 blah. That's not me. But I think where I overcompensated and really light bulb moment was after I talked to Sydney was I always felt like I needed to be there for my kids because my dad and my mother were divorced when I was younger, and it was a different time. Our parents didn't go to everything. That just wasn't what it was about. We had the freedom to play, without those eyeballs on us. And I think my own emotional issue was that my dad, and I won't go deep into this, but my dad didn't go to any of my baseball games. And when he had the opportunity when I was playing in college in Texas, he came to very little. So my whole approach was I was going to be there. Sydney said to me on the podcast, I said, well, is there anything you would have liked differently? She said, very cautiously, I might add, she said, maybe if you guys didn't go to as many games. I said, what? She goes, maybe if you didn't go to as many games, like you didn't need to be at every game. I would have liked to have just gotten on the phone with you after a game and said, hey, I scored a goal. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I would have missed seeing that joy. But then I stopped and I thought, oh my God, like I took that away from her, which was so precious to me without even realizing having that freedom. To your point, it's like, we've got to listen to these kids.
I mean, it's kind of like them coming to the office with us every day and what are you doing and who are you typing? What meetings are you in? And like, we're in their business all the time and allowing them the opportunity to make mistakes. I had a mom call from Colorado and her daughter's a softball player. And she's like, well, I have to be at the practices because I've got to hear what the batting lineup is so that I can be, and I played, so I understand the game. I said, go for a run. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, the batting lineup is going to be the batting lineup, regardless of whether you watch practice
you're not going to change
right?
it.
Newsflash. But it kind of was a newsflash to her. She's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
And think about the pressure you're putting on your daughter. And I wrote about this in the book because I interviewed a club director from Texas about COVID and what a gift COVID was for a while because the parents couldn't be there. And they ran a tryout. And the 12-year-old girl who happened to be 6 feet tall kept getting put on the ones team because the parents demanded she's on the ones team. She's on the ones team. She has to be on the ones team. Well, during COVID, she wasn't that good. She just wanted to be on a team. And when they called her into the back, tapped her on the shoulder to tell her without the parents there because they couldn't be there, hey, what do you think about being on a twos team? She was like, yes, awesome. Can I go back out there? And the club director, as she told the story, she's like, that would have never happened had the parents been in the room because they would have taken, no, this is absolutely not okay. She can't be on a twos team. And I just had a mom reach out to me, DM me yesterday about the same thing. She's 12. She got an offer to go play on the threes, on the ones team, but I'm going to let her play on the twos team. Is that okay? I said, there is not anywhere of anybody who cares what team you played on at 12.
Yeah.
Like that's, again, that has nothing to do with anything. But what I'd rather see is that her build confidence. Competence is built by reps, and confidence leads to confidence, right? Yeah. So if you are not getting the reps, you are not getting better. If you're not getting better, then you're not going to grow into the role that you're meant to be. So being on the ones team, but being on the bench, is a waste of time and a waste of your money.
Yeah.
Right. So allow her to be where she can grow. And parents, yes, even all the way up to the college level. I remember one of my son's classmates got recruited to play football at UCLA, and all the parents, I was like, oh, congrats to the parents. And they were like, that's awesome. We can't wait. And I was like, yeah, when's the first game? Oh, no, not the first game. The spring practices start where parents tailgate at every spring practice. And I was like, oh, what? Like,
yeah.
I guess I don't get it, because is it his journey or your journey? And are we just living vicariously through, yes, and of course you're proud of them and of course you want to see it, but allowing them, I think the best gift my parents ever said was, if you don't play for us, if you don't want to play for us, play for yourself, then quit. But back then, their $75, registration fee, it was a lot less barrier to entry. And what I'm seeing now, and I see a post a week about this, my 16-year-old is quitting club volleyball. How dare she? All of this money we've sunk into this. It breaks my heart, because is that why you signed her up at 7 or 8, was only so that she'd play in college? She said, well, she's so good and she just doesn't want to play anymore. because we've burned her out, because that's the only, the only thing she has going on in her life.
Yeah.
And one of my biggest parenting regrets is that my kids didn't have other hobbies. They never had jobs. They never had time for a job because we're all in on, going to Orange County every weekend for every tournament, for Vegas every summer. Like, it's tough. It's really tough, but we only get 18 summers with them. We only get this time. Then we're all going to be looking back and telling a story. And that's what I hope when people read my book. I tell the story of these three boys when we were living in Buffalo who stood up at the senior night of the basketball banquet. And all three of them said the exact same thing. My career is over, but I want to thank either my mother or my sister for being that shoulder I could cry on in the car ride home after dad chewed me out the whole way at home. These are kids who had played basketball for 10, 12, 15 years. They're summing up their entire career with, that sucked.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to find the tissue box. Hold on a minute.
Right?
Seriously.
And I don't think they're bad parents. Like,
yeah.
I really don't believe there's a single parent out there, even the balls of the world, the whatever, you name them, they're not trying to screw up their kids. They're doing the best they can from where they are with what they've got.
Yeah.
And that's why we need some space between stimulus and response. What happens and how am I, as the parent, going to react to it? Because my reaction is going to set a ripple directly to my child over how we react to things, right? Oh, this is, I wrote about, and this was again 7 years ago, a kid who had gone to 4 high schools in 4 years in 3 states, right? Like, it's still happening because we're not wrong. Only you're wrong. And what are we teaching our kid? I'm not saying there's not times when you should transfer. I did, and my kids have. But if the only thing you do is every time a headwind blows, you pivot, we're not allowing them to learn, to get some of the really good, juicy fruit from the tree.
Yeah. By the way, I'm going to look on the other side of that because I think I kept them, well, my soccer player daughter, I kept her in things longer than she should have, as opposed to pulling the plug, getting out. I say this often. I'm sure I've said this to you on a call. I've negotiated multi-million-dollar sports television rights, and I could not negotiate my 11-year, 12-year-old soccer daughter off of her team. Like, I couldn't do it. Like, it was like impossible. And you keep her in situations that she shouldn't have been in. I knew in my gut she shouldn't have been in. And instead of saying, look, we're going to make a break, we did eventually make breaks and things changed, but there's pulling the plug very quickly. And then I think there's sometimes staying in it a bit too long and being careful of that. And again, it's really hard to determine what that line is, and hopefully this information that we're providing. I want to say this and then ask you another question here that I wasn't planning to go into, but you talk about, what parents have available to them and sitting on the sidelines and watching and so on and so forth. I got to tell you, the biggest thing that I want to preach to anybody and the message I want to get out is, if you're going to drive to practice and you're not going to leave the facility, put a podcast on. Put Kirsten Jones on, put Raising Athletes on, put Be Valiant on. There are so many good sources of information now to listen to and to learn. Buy Kirsten's book. Like, sit away from the field and read the book. Like, take in this information that's so valuable so that you're making the right decisions for your kids, so you're getting the better outcomes, you're getting stronger mental health outcomes, you're getting stronger physical health outcomes. It's so important that you understand this journey. I did not have this, so it's very important to parents. You understand this.
I love that point. Can I validate that?
Yeah.
And when I speak with parents, I talk about, we are a combination of the top 5 people we spend time with. That also goes into, what are you listening to? Who are you? What are you reading? What are you downloading? How are you spending your time filling your head up with positive, with what I want, what am I manifesting? What am I trying to, what do I want this journey to be for my kids? So that is exactly what I did as I was trying to, get this book written, was listening to others talk about it, there's plenty of other books out there too, but yes, my book, I've had a couple parents call where they're like, okay, I've listened to your book twice. Okay, now I'm ready to talk to you about it, which is great. Like, I hope that that's what it can become, is it's a thought starter, because sometimes we are not aware of how we're feeling. We just know we're not feeling good. We know we're frustrated. I mean, to your point, like with your daughter, she's 11. You don't know why it's not working. You just know that it's not working. And you're like, okay, how do I fix this? And sometimes we need to step outside of ourselves and hear from somebody else who says, yeah, it's time to pivot, and like be given permission to say, okay, what are the other options? And Sydney, let's sit down together. Let's talk about what the other options are. And here, parent, I always, yeah, but all of our best friends are on that team and we can't leave. Those are my best friends. That's the other thing, right? We
Yeah.
build our parenting communities through them. And I can't tell you the number of times I wrote about this too. There was a kid who was a water polo player for years and years and years. He was in an Olympic development program. He was the top player at the high school. And then one day he comes home and he's in tears and he said, Mom, I got cut as a junior on the water polo team. Just your name was not on the wall. And she came to me in tears and said, this, I don't know what to do. And I said, okay, let's brainstorm. What are the options? And she goes, well, the diving coach reached out. And so she goes, I don't know. And 2 weeks later, I said, she goes, he's never been happier. She's like, he pivoted to diving. He's made a whole new group of friends that he didn't even know existed. He's been at the high school for 3 years. And now he's got, and okay, yes, I'm going to miss my water polo friends, but as long as we know, parents, as long as they are happy, we're happy.
Yeah.
So sometimes we need to remove ourselves from the equation and be like, okay, if I can take my own feelings out of this and just allow them, what do you want to do?
Yeah. Well, and you kind of give me a good lead in here where I wanted to go that we weren't planning on talking about, specialization and what that actually does if you, and again, we probably went down this road too early. Oh, I know we did. I didn't like it. It felt like I was stuck in it, and I tried to maneuver it, and I could not maneuver it. And that's keeping our kids in multiple sports. First of all, it is what coaches are looking for. As I think we said at the top of the podcast, coaches want multiple sport athletes. They are more well-rounded. They are a much better athlete to have in the system. But it is highly critical, both from a mental standpoint and a physical standpoint, for health reasons, that kids are playing multiple sport year-round, and I would argue all the way through their senior year. Look, if it's a junior and senior one sport thing focus, hey, fine. But times have not changed. When you and I grew up, and again, I'm older than you, but when you and I grew up, we were multiple sport athletes. We were playing everything, wherever we could, whenever we could. And kids have lost that ability to do that. And I think from the perspective of the organizations and the coaches that they get locked into, as opposed to having the freedom to go figure it out. To your point, that kid, didn't make the water polo team, and here she is on the diving team and has now found a great sport. So from that standpoint of, and just touching on this a little bit, when do we really want to worry about specialization? I hate that word, but staying focused on, one sport, because I think the only way you're going to get healthier, happier kids is the break of the sport the way it's meant to be. There's a reason why there's a word off season. It's for physical rest and mental rest, right? There's an off season, but we don't have off seasons in club sports, competitive club sports, because that's just what the organizations want to do and hold on to you for financial reasons for the most part. Your thoughts?
The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends 2 months off in between each season. Ha, 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 right? Like 2 days off is what you'll get, right?
Yeah.
But what we know is that, yes, their bodies are growing so fast, their brains. Sleep is a superpower. If you want to 10x your results, they need to be getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep at night. I'm working with athletes who are burning the midnight oil in academics and getting up to hit a 5:30 weight room, right? Like, they're not getting the hours that they need, and that's causing issues. At what age should we specialize? When we know that less than 5% will go on to play D1, D2, D3, NAIA, any level beyond high school, what does it matter if you're on the very top team? Like, so I think it has to come back to it's and you may have 3 kids or 5 kids or whatever, and every child is different, but understanding what the quote unquote ceiling, what the drive of that athlete is, what the athleticism of that athlete is. And that's where I come back to understanding or having a relationship with a coach through the club or through the high school who will be honest with you, who you trust, who, like for both of my boys were late bloomers. And, one club director at, my son's junior year of high school, he said, I'll be honest with you, you're a D3 player right now. You're, 6'4", 175, you're too thin, you're not filled out. Like he gave all the real reasons that if you want to become a D1 player, here's what the runway is. Here's what you need to do to get better. And he was very honest. And then we said, is this your dream? And if it is, then let's talk about what it would take to get there. And CJ said, yes, this is my dream. And for boys, particularly who can be really late bloomers, he went on and did a prep school year. He went to back east and did a PG year, which gave him a full year of physical, mental, emotional growth, not to mention a year away from home to get more organized and get on top of his stuff. And it was through that year, which actually happened for both of my sons, that they went out of high school with zero interest, zero offers from any colleges, to getting recruited by over a dozen D1 schools. Does that happen for everybody? No, that's not the point. The point is understanding what it is your child and each child individually, what are their goals? And a lot of kids will say, I'm really, really good, but I'm kind of done, but I can't tell my mom that. That always breaks my heart. Like we have to be realistic with what, and my daughter, who could have played D3, she was getting recruited by a bunch of D3 schools. And finally, we're on the 52nd club tournament of the season, and we're up in Spokane, Washington, and she's bawling her eyes out in the room the one night. And she said, I just don't think I want to play in college. And of course, in my mind, I had said it to her 25 times. I don't care if you play. I don't care if you play. But what she saw from her brothers both playing, from her dad and her mom playing, was this is what we Joneses do.
Yeah.
I need to go do this. And I clearly said, you do not need to go play. And the relief, oh my gosh, the way she played the rest of the weekend, you would have thought she won the lottery. She was so happy. So parents, you could say, yeah, I tell them all the time. And I hear that. Yeah, but do you tell them in a way that they can really understand? What are your other interests? And so that's where I pivoted with Kylie. She's like, well, I really would like to go to to a film school program this summer. Okay, for 3 weeks, you're not going to practice volleyball. You're going to go to film school. Is that what you want? Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. 3 years later, that's what she's doing. Do I know for a fact that she's going to become a film director, actor, whatever? No. But she's taking everything she learned in volleyball, how to win, how to lose, how to be a good teammate, how to work hard, and she's applying it to this new venture. And I'd like to say at least she's better off than not, having had all of that adversity.
Yeah. Well, and it's the passion, right? I mean, I've talked about this on previous podcasts. I could not get across to my girls that what I love most is watching them do the thing they love most. And for one of them, the oldest, the volleyball player at a time, it was being the sideline water bottle girl at ASU football games. And she used to be like, Dad, why are you coming to the game? Because I want to watch you on the sideline. She goes, but I'm just holding water bottle. But you love it. It's so awesome to see, right? You said you said a lot of things. I can't keep up with you, by the way. You've got so much great information coming out. But you said one thing I want to emphasize to the parents that are listening. You talked about coaches. You talked about, having the right coach. Parents, I want to tell you something. Your greatest point of leverage is when you are looking for a team to go to. And at that point, in a nice way, interview the coaches. Get an idea of who they are, understand what their development plans are, how they treat kids. Go watch practices. Go watch the parents that are, around those practices on those teams if you can. Get an understanding of what the organizations are like. You are never going to have a moment as strong as you're going to have when you're looking to find a coach or a club for your kids to go play for. So ask questions and hold them accountable. And if they don't hold true to them, then go find another team. And I think it's really important what Kirsten is saying, that you understand you have that ability, you have that freedom. That is your superpower. Hold on to that superpower.
Can I add too? And at the high school level, what I am seeing a lot more is you brought up earlier, which is, I know at some high schools they're allowing at least no-cut sports through freshman year. But as a parenting group, you can go to your athletic director, go to your principal and say, we value our kids playing sport. We need to offer no-cut sports through junior or senior year, right? Like there's no reason. So cross country, track and field, football freshmen. I know a lot of places. I was speaking at a school in Pasadena actually, and I said, "Do you have no cut sports?" And she said, "Well, yeah, I think just one of them. I think badminton." And then the other mom jumped in. She goes, "No, no, no, badminton's is a cut sport too, right?" Like we're getting to a place where like it doesn't even make sense. Nobody's going to play badminton in college on a full ride. Like let them play.
Yeah. By the way, the fireworks, we're not even halfway through where I wanted to go with you. You know that, right, Kirsten? So
Do part two.
this will be one of five to get where we need to go. I do want to ask you really quick because I wanted to go deeper into this, but I want to get your thoughts overall on mental health and helping parents in particular. I know you work with athletes. Let's talk about this with parents for a minute because for me, it was identification early on. It was understanding where to find help, which I couldn't find enough help. Give us some summary thoughts here on mental health, and then we'll move on to a conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it earlier, but it is your own mental health too that's so important, right? So I believe we're kind of the tree, and the more our roots are grounded as the parent, that when the winds blow, when we can handle it better, then we'll do a better job of helping our child get through the tumultuous times too. So first start with yourself. And by that I mean, what are you doing and what are you modeling for self-care, for fitness, for how you're eating, for how you're sleeping, for what goals do you have? How are you failing at those goals? And those should be the things you're discussing. Like, oh my gosh, I totally bombed this interview today, right? Allowing them to modeling to them that we're not expecting it to go perfectly.
Yeah.
In fact, you seeing that it's okay that it didn't go perfectly. And I think these kids feel like, they're supposed to get the 4 or 5 and they're supposed to be perfect at whatever sport or activity they do. And they're standing on two very small little pinnacles. We need to have 10 or 4 different things so that when one of them isn't going well, the other one is. Like, you're still a member of this family. You still have chores. You still have commitments to your friends. You still have commitments to the family. Like, we need to be spreading out things so that they can. Again, what I'm seeing more and more is their whole social, mental, emotional well-being is coming through one lane, and it's too much pressure. I was just speaking up at Lake Tahoe School, and I asked, middle schoolers, how many of you ever have anxiety? Every single hand went up. Like that at 13, 12, like why is that the number one thing? Because we've put too much pressure early on about the outcome.
Yeah.
It's so important what team you're on. It's so important about what time you get, what race you're in, whatever the barrier is to entry is too high. And it's not allowing for kids to feel like it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. It's okay to have it not go your way.
Yeah.
I'm more curious to see, okay, how are we going to respond to that? Wow, that sucked. Okay, now what can I do? How can I be better tomorrow?
So in your work, what are you hearing from parents and what are you telling parents to help, recognize the onset of mental health, anxiety, stress, whatever else comes with it, which could come from injuries. It was concussions for me with my daughter. It was other factors. I mean, what are you finding and what are you telling parents on how to see this?
Some of it, yeah, like you said, it's injuries, it's coaching, it's playing time, it's and like I was with a team this morning at 7 a.m. in the gym. They have 5:30 a.m. practice, and the one girl raises her hand. She's like, "I'm in 5 APs. I don't get to bed till midnight. We're here at 5:30 in the morning. I don't want to miss practice." She's dedicated. She goes, she goes, "But I don't play, so I'm trying to figure out how to balance it all." And sometimes parents, our role is to be empathetic. And like this morning, I came with bagels to let them know they all matter, right? Like I can be here to tell you you're doing the best you can. And that's what we need to hear sometimes, right? Like it's okay. So signals of them withdrawing, of them feeling completely overwhelmed. Maybe you need to call a timeout and say, you know what, you're going to pick one day this week and you're not going to go to practice and you're going to sleep in.
Yeah.
If that's going to give you better mental health, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
And if the coach isn't going to play you, okay, so be it. I mean, we have to, generally too, and we need another hour to go into all of this. But unfortunately, the way this world works too is the peak the highest performers who have the most talent can miss the practice and still get to play. Can come to, I see the kids who miss the first morning of school but still start in the game the whole day, right? But the kids who don't miss a single practice, who are the workhorses, who aren't as good, can't afford to miss a single minute. It's not fair. There's no other way to say it, but the only thing I can say is be empathetic and ask questions about how can I support you?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good advice. Let me close on mental health asking you this because of Nike. I think this is interesting that just recently happened. They came out with a new campaign called Why Do It versus Just Do It, which has been the long-running slogan of Nike. I think they heard the cries of mental health in the athletic space and shifted gears a little bit. The company intimately, you know the brand intimately in the marketing. What do you think's behind all that?
Yeah, I think there is a big need for kids to understand their why and why are they doing something. And I think the answer a lot is, I don't know. I had a girl a couple weeks ago and I said, so why do you play soccer? She's like, I don't know. I'm like, do you watch soccer when you're not playing? No. Do you have a favorite star? No. Like, it's just something I've done. When did you start playing? I don't know. Like, we've started them so young that it's just something that they do, but it's an activity you do. It's not who you are. So helping them separate those two things, that at some point you'll stop playing soccer and that's okay.
Yeah.
We don't love you because you play soccer. And I had that with my middle son who during COVID wasn't getting recruited. And he said, without basketball, what am I?
Yeah.
Without basketball, oh my gosh, there's 5,000 other things that you are. I am a horrible parent if the only thing you think we value is your ability to dribble a ball or shoot a ball.
Yeah.
That is not what this is about. And I believe most parents, hopefully all parents, see that as well. So finding little ways that you can help them. And that's kind of what I do. Sometimes I'm working directly with the parents. They're hiring me saying, I need your help.
Yeah.
Can you help me navigate this? And I'm happy to. And then sometimes it's working directly with the athlete. And sometimes it's a combination of both.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, if I had found you during my time during youth sports, your phone would have been ringing off the hook. Where are you, Kirsten? I got an issue I got to talk to you about. Okay, so we're near our end, and I do want to ask you one thing about the whole ecosystem, and we'll wrap up with rapid fire. If you could change one thing about the youth sports system today, what would it be?
Access. It's too, this pay to play model is broken. It's the bar is too high. We're not allowing everybody to get in and enjoy it. And we've flipped the script. Look at the Nordics model. They don't even keep score until they're 13, 14, 15. They produce the best athletes in the ski, in the outdoor. And it's because they all love it, because their why is clear. They're like, I just love skiing. That's why I do it.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it because I've been told since I was 4 that I had talent and that I have to be the best.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go into rapid fire. And again, I can't believe we're at an hour. The clock literally just clicked an hour on me. So I don't know how that happened. But let's do rapid fire, and then we'll figure it out another time. The first one I want to ask you is, what advice would you give parents, or one word of advice you'd give parents just entering the competitive youth sports world?
Breathe.
That's good. I think I've heard that before. I'll have to look back.
I mean, it is. And I mean that in a pause. And I would say, again, we humans have the one mammal that can think forward and think back. And we always look back on things and go, oh, I realize why things played out. But when we're at the front looking up the mountain, we don't know how it's going to be. So take a moment to think, if I'm sitting here 12 years from now, what do I want my kids to be saying about this experience, this childhood experience?
Yeah. Good advice. One word. This is really
I only
rapid
get
fire.
one word?
Now, no, now you do. I'm telling you, one word that best describes your own sports parenting style.
Supportive.
Okay, that's good. I'll take that. You may have answered this question. Hardest moment you faced as a sports parent and what it taught you.
Yeah, I think it was with my daughter and being on the sidelines and her not getting even sniffing the court. And my ego was hurt, but also the pain for her, seeing her ego go through that.
Yeah, I know. I've been there. Felt it. One thing you learned as an athlete that most shaped how you parent your kids.
I was bullied. I read a chapter about that. I was, big fish in a smaller pond, and girls didn't like that. And that really formulated how I then decided how I wanted to treat. And I said, one day I'm going to be the best player on the team, and I will never treat other girls the way they were treating me. And that carried into college, and that carried into Nike. And originally my business was You Go Girl, and I was going to only focus on girls and women. And then I realized I had 3 men in my house, plus I love men. And then I had an NFL guy say, well, can I hire you? And so, yes, it's peak performance, but how we treat others is, kindness is everything, and how we want to be seen. I believe everybody's doing the best they can. They really just want to be seen and heard. And even if you're the number 18th kid on the team, coach, if you have them on the team, give them a purpose.
Yeah.
If you don't have a purpose for them, cut them. You are not helping them by saying, oh yeah, but I'm giving them a jersey. They should be happy to be here.
Yeah. I totally agree. And by the way, for those of you watching, I'm not laughing. I'm laughing because if I could have done Be Valiant as a female-only focus for youth athletes, I would have done it as a girl dad. But there are problems on both sides of the gender that need to be addressed. So I can appreciate what Kirsten's saying. The best thing you ever said to your child after the game, one of the kids, the best quote you ever gave one of them after a game.
I love to watch you play.
Oh, okay. Love that. One thing you've had to unlearn as a sports parent.
As much as I love winning, that's not what this is about.
Yeah, good one. All right, and this is your last question. Everybody gets this question. As a parent, what does Be Valiant mean to you?
Lead with your heart.
Okay, I love it.
Which is kindness, which is caring, which is being compassionate, which is whether you played well or not today, hold your head up high, give your best effort, look the other team in the eye, shake their hand, and say, good job.
Yeah. By the way, you're giving me the tinglies. So parents at home that are listening, that was very good advice. She got the tinglies on me. So very good. All right. So I'm going to give you a final thought. You have any final thoughts for us?
Well, your first question about what is in one word, but if I can give a few more about my mantra as a parent, when my oldest went away to prep school and he was interviewed for the first time, and he says, well, what he then quoted me, like, okay, so what do you remember about your mom and dad and how they parented you? And he said, well, my mom used to just say, shut up and go work out. And I thought, oh no, that's what he remembered. And then when I read it, and he said, no, that's not what I meant, Mom. What I meant was you were always like pushing me and wanting me to be better. So we can love with limits, right? Like it doesn't mean just let them do whatever they want. Like their frontal lobes are wide open. They don't have, executive functioning yet. They don't understand time. They don't have the tools yet. So we need to be the guardrails for them as those systems come online. So we need to give them structure, but we also need to allow them to know that we love them unconditionally.
Yeah, good point. That's a great thought. Great final thought. Tell parents where they can get information. I know it's KirstenJonesInc.com, Raising Athletes with Kirsten Jones, the podcast, but fill us in. Where can parents connect with you?
All the things. Yep. I'm big on Instagram and on LinkedIn, Kirsten Jones Coach and Kirsten Jones Coaching, I think, on LinkedIn. And yes, I have the podcast weekly. I'm interviewing. I do Mom's Edition. I had like Randy Mahomes, Patrick's mom.
Great podcast, by the way. Anybody needs to tune into that one. It's a great podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, talking to, behind every great athlete, there's a team behind them.
Yep.
We are back there doing things. So I don't only just interview coaches or authors or psychologists. I'm also interviewing parents who are helping. Actually, I'm going to have the world motocross champion, 2-time motocross champion, her mom on next week, right? Like, yeah. And she's only 17 years old and she's blowing the wheels off of everything. Like that's super fun to me. And then I'm also doing Athletes Edition. So hearing the stories, I interviewed my own 2 boys. I haven't done my daughter yet, but hearing their stories and their experience. And I think we can learn a lot. When I work with younger athletes, I always say, look for somebody 1 or 2 steps ahead of you.
Yeah.
It's great to hear advice from a 55-year-old, but there's somebody that's doing right now what you want to be doing 1, 2, 3 years from now.
Yep.
So success leaves clues.
I agree.
Find out what they're doing. What are they eating? How are they performing? What are their secret sources of help? And that will help you get to where you want to go.
Yeah. 100% agree with you. So read her book, listen or watch her podcast, follow her on Substack. You can catch her there where she does go live on things. So if you need something answered right away, she's on Substack. I can't thank you enough that we finally made this happen. You were maybe going to come in studio, and hopefully next time we can. Yeah, well, and we got to do it again soon. This has been really fun and a lot of good fireworks, a lot of good things to talk about.
Thank you, Todd, for having me. It flew by.
Yeah, you're telling me. Yeah, it definitely flew by. Well, thank you very much. Well, if you found value in this conversation, share it with another parent, an athlete, or even a coach. For more stories like Kirsten's and her family's, as well as other resources, visit playfearless.org. And for how I end every podcast, for all the parents that are in the thick of it or just starting out, remember, you're allowed to make bold, informed decisions for your child. You're allowed to walk away from the wrong team. You're allowed to demand a better culture. But most of all, you're allowed to trust your gut and lead your family the way that's right for you and especially your kids. Until next time, be valiant, play fearless.